Why is Tommy Robinson in jail? Well, if you read all the newspapers and the fake news, university educated idiots, it's because of contempt of court. When in actual fact, we know that a certain ideology encourages its members to attack non-members of said ideology. Yes, it really does. At the trial with Tommy Robinson, it mentions specifically this man. This man is a convicted rapist, a convicted child rapist. One of many, one of 77 child rapists this year, as a matter of fact. 77, yes. Fake news media don't want to tell you this. And last year in Huddersfield there were 72. Of these 77, several are women who were, at least 3 were women who have been done for neglect, for not helping these girls, for letting these weirdos take the girls above like takeaways and taxi officers and what have you, to do the disgusting things they do. Well, apparently he caused this man lots of fear and distress. Well, I think when he was holding knives to 12, 13-year-old girls' throats and bumming them and raping them through every orifice available, I think all these girls, these hundreds of girls, were also quite distressed, don't you? Yes, I don't see their threats to kill have particularly been addressed by the courts, by the court system. Here's the 9-month sentence it mentions here in the the Guardian, the Guardian, who joins in with this ridiculous ploy of trying to say these grooming gangs aren't going on, still going on, to an even higher extent than they used to in Rotherham and London and Luton. The plain fact is there's about 150 men right now who are being processed through the court system and being jailed, and none of them have been reported on. They've put reporting restrictions on all of them. As we know, the first 20 here had the reporting restrictions taken off at the request of the press, basically. Here we go, these are historic offences, as it says, between 2004 and what have you. 20 men found guilty of child sex abuse, and one of these men, who is presently sitting in jail, this man on the top left here, this is an Islamic following man who later converted to Sikhism. This is the guy who he unfortunately put through great distress. Well, he's a convicted paedophile, a convicted multi-orifice rapist of 12 and 14-year-old girls. So I'd be a lot more concerned if I was you, the CPS, the fact that he was doing this to our youngsters with a racially motivated agenda, because this ideology, whether you like to admit it or not, is extremely supremacist. It is not to do with peace. This ideology did invade and wipe out 500 years of Christianity. This is a fact. If you people were educated enough like me to look into the history, you would know that Lebanon, Egypt, Syria, Iran, Tunisia, Nigeria, etc. were all Christian for hundreds of years before this ideology was invented. Yes, invented by an illiterate 54-year-old man who had a taste for youngsters, taste for sadism, killing and youngsters. That is who invented this ideology back in like 610 AD. And they, of course, we're not allowed to say what some of the deeds this man did, because he was plainly a monster. He was an absolute monster, even in his day, in his somewhat, barbaric day. In the West, we've always valued our women and our girls and sought to protect them, but it has to be said that in this ideology, women, females and gays and people wanting to leave this ideology are the worst victims, certainly. Women, although maybe indoctrinated in the West to think it's all about peace, women are regularly stoned to death and are held down and have their genitals mutilated with razor blades in screaming agony. If you want to know about this, put in YouTube, it's just come back on recently, put in YouTube search bar FGM in Egypt, and you'll see a picture of a middle-aged man who is just about to do this atrocity on the young girl there. And this atrocity, FGM, female genital mutilation, is being done in London and Yorkshire and all over the world to make these poor girls, poor females, into numb baby machines who have no rights, who are kept indoors all evening, who are covered up with hijabs in case anybody should approach them. One of these people, in fact, if they dared even to speak or smile to a married woman or any woman, they would be liable to be hacked to pieces with machetes or acid attacks. This has happened numerous times in London. This really has. This is how tolerant this religion of peace really is. It's not tolerant at all, and it never has been. It's very supremacist, or Nazi, basically. It's Nazi ideology that believes, that tells all its followers that you are the rightful masters of the earth. That's what it says in their book. You are the rightful masters of the earth, just like an earlier master race. So the fact is, Tommy Robinson should not have been jailed for showing these people's faces, for daring to report on them. This is a ploy, basically, as hiding all the present prosecutions for rape gangs. This is a ploy, basically, to try and state the falsehood that this is not still going on, and it is going on all over the country, all over Europe. This is a fact of the matter. The fact that CPS, the relatively ignorant CPS, and the fake news media have been indoctrinated into thinking this ideology was ever anything except a warlike, slave-taking, genocidal cult is just testament to people's ignorance, really. I was warned about this ideology when I was a young boy, and I'm middle-aged now, by my father, who had read a lot of Winston Churchill's works and had read some of this holy book, and knew full well that it was never anything to do with ideology. It was to do with self-enrichment, envy, slave dealing, and warfare. And of course, when in the ancient days, when King Richard Lionheart took 70,000 Englishmen over there, basically they were frightened stiff of them. They were frightened stiff of them because they too believed he was fighting with God. And King Richard and his gang of volunteers, and some of the French, 30,000 of French joined them, and they basically wiped the floor with these barbarians in at least 10 engagements. If only Barbarossa, the German leader, had brought his 100,000, hadn't died on the way, history would have been much changed, and the history of the Middle East would be far more progressive and a richer future for all those people, instead of being condemned to this slavery under this supremacist death cult. I'll just play a few seconds, just in case you don't know. Here, Tommy, in the public streets, quite rightly, reports on things, on these rapists, on these 77 rapists in Huddersfield, although, as I say, there's only 20 of them where the reporting restrictions have been lifted. So, it's, as we know, this is deter the likes of me, Tommy Robinson, or anyone else reporting on this plague, this rape, paedophilic plague that these people are told to conduct in their very unholy, very barbaric, very violent book. And their holy book, if you can call it a holy book, I would say it was an unholy book, is full of massacres. There's at least 4 massacres done by Old Mo. Where the first massacre, for instance, Banu Qurayza, they did slaughter between 600 and 900 men, and it took all day till the evening. They had to light torches to continue the beheadings. So to play a few seconds of Tommy, I've been following Tommy's stuff for decades, and also Paul Golding's stuff, and they're the only ones, up until now, the only ones brave enough to point out that these rape gangs are all over the country. There is hatred in virtually every mosque in the country, and certainly the mosque building programme must be stopped at all costs, and they must be held accountable for these hate speeches that go on within these mosques. As in Didsbury, we saw what happened in Didsbury. It led to the slaughter of 40 odd of our people, of our young girls, who are, they despise us, they hate us, but they're encouraged to rape us and rob us.
Got your bags for you? You got your bags for you? Yeah. How are you feeling about the burden?
Yeah, suck your mum's funny.
You've got no guilt. Is there any guilt? Is there any guilt, mate? Is there any guilt?
Fucking dad. It's never big.
So, As you can see there, doesn't seem like much guilt. Doesn't seem like anyone's ashamed. I'm outside Leeds Crown Court, where today 10 men are facing verdicts. They're verdicts for a alleged grooming and rape scandal involving hundreds of young girls, but there's 18 victims come forward.
Did you hear about hundreds of young girls? Probably many hundreds of young girls, because this is the difference. I mean, most perverts in the UK are white men, of course. We are 91% white. But where grooming gangs are concerned, 91%, yes, 91% who do target vast numbers of girls all follow one ideology. This isn't hard to work out, because this ideology tells them they're better than us, tells them to hate us, tells them not to mix with us. This is the truth, and it's never ever been to do with anything but war, invasion, dominance, and robbery, basically, and mass killing. This is, do you know, for instance, the whole of Turkey was, Istanbul used to be called Constantinople and was a highly advanced eastern capital of the Eastern Church. Did you know this? Yes. And now it's 99% Islamic. And of course, please Google the Armenian genocide, where in 1915, this religion of peace did commit genocide on 1.5 million innocent Christians from all walks of life. And they marched them into the desert and they machine gunned them. They starved them, they beat them, they did the most horrific tortures imaginable. And this is what it says to do in their ancient barbaric book. That's a fact. See you guys.